So I just want to say hi and thank you all for joining us tonight. We are with, this is the Organizer Coach, and I have a special guest with us tonight. And I'll be sharing a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes. My name is Tammy, and I am a certified coach and a professional organizer. I work with special needs, a student success coach, and a parent trainer. And we love working with different guests and hosting this. We do Facebook Live and Zoom Live twice a month, the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. And in conjunction with Get Organized Month, I thought, how cool would it be to invite our guest speaker tonight, because this is what he does also. And we are so fortunate because he represents one of our business partners at NAPO, which is National Association of Productivity and Organizing Consultants, in our local chapter. And so Patrick is going to share all his great tips and talents about organizing space in our closet. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But I want to thank you again for tuning in. This is Tammy O'Neill, the Organizer Coach. You can connect with me at tammy@theorganizercoach.com, or you can find me on the web at theorganizercoach.com. And we're going to put Patrick's he'll type in his information in the chat box. So if you have questions that maybe you don't want to, share with everybody, maybe you just want to share with Patrick, he'll put his contact information in there and be able to get back with you. So I'm going to share a little bit. That's how I met Patrick, was through our local NAPO DFW chapter. And Patrick is also a professional organizer and has been in the business for about as long as I have, 15 years or so. And he is also a representative with California Closets. And he has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to time, space, and energy. And so we're very fortunate to have him. His background is from Christian college, and his expertise is serving other people. And that he is excellent at this and serving his work and the design work that he does. So, Patrick, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to have you come on here and tell us just a little bit about how you got interested in design and space.
Well, it's kind of a cool story in a lot of ways. First of all, my father was an engineering draftsman. And so I grew up with him actually designing and building homes. And so kind of the design brain is in my blood. He would draw on graph paper, and he would use the most exquisite block printing. I've never been able to replicate it. And so that was really very much in my blood from a very young age. The house I grew up in Colorado was designed and built by my father. And he used really pragmatic and practical approaches to how he organized a space. And for an example, another building he designed and built was a full round log custom home for some folks who were managing a private college in our area. And the main living space, and this would have been back in the 1960s, was an octagonal open plan living space with a suspended fireplace in the middle.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I bet that was something.
It was stunning. It was just stunning. Yeah. And so I just was exposed to it from a very young age. And I've always had kind of the mind of like, how do you make sense of like a pile of stuff? That's a lot of what organizers are really good at. And so then I combine that with that spatial sense, and working with California Closets allows me to design spaces for customers so that they work for the customer. And that's what we all do when we're organizing, is we want our solution to work for the lifestyle, for the special needs of the customer, Tammy, like you do. When you have individuals with perceptual challenges and things like that, then you have to be sensitive to, this is obviously the space for your shoes, or this is obviously the space for your long hanging. This is obviously, so you have to keep that in mind. At least I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a kind of circuitous route to get to this, because I went to a Bible college in Kansas City and graduated with a degree in music and Bible. And then I ended up working as a professional trainer in the mortgage industry. And so it's been, but I always loved watching HGTV.
Mm-hmm.
And I have also had the privilege of seeing on stage, I didn't meet her in person, but I have had the privilege of seeing on stage Marie Kondo.
Nice.
And if folks don't know who that is, she's this itty bitty Korean lady who from a very young age was obsessively organizing. She organized her whole neighborhood and everything like that. And she's adorable, and she has a really neat style, and she's got quite a following. So I've been exposed to a lot of different things, and I will tell you, my time as I've had the opportunity to participate in NAPO and coordinate, I've had several occasions where I've coordinated with other members of NAPO on organizing projects. We all have different styles and everything like that, but we all have a passion for helping people.
For helping people, yeah. So Patrick, I have several questions here for you that I've been asked, okay? And I thought, well, you know what? I'm just gonna bring it on to you. We all have some form of a closet. Some of us have huge homes with huge closets. Some of us have, very small homes with tiny closets. So let's start with the tiny space. Okay, because there's a that seems to be important now, is that downsizing, right? Yeah. So let's look at that small closet, very small closet. Two people, all right, that two people share, and it's very limited.
Yes.
One closet, two adults.
One closet, two adults sharing a small closet. This sounds like fun. Okay, go ahead.
So what would you suggest to someone that said, okay, Patrick, I want the most efficient use of space out of this closet? Do I put hanging rods in? Do I build it out with shelves? Do I, what do I do? How do I make the most efficient use of this?
I'll tell you a quick story, and this goes to the origins of the company California Closets, and it's very relevant to this. The individual who founded California Closets was studying his master's in business, and he was moving back into his dorm for his last year. And the closet that he had, and this happened to be in 1978. And so the other thing too is, and I had a whole separate presentation that I can do on the evolution of storage. But in the 1970s, we hadn't really started having big closets yet.
Right.
And a typical dorm closet is very typical of a lot of Regent closets and even some regular closets in homes built in that era from the 50s to the 60s and 70s. And so imagine a 5 foot wide by 2 foot deep closet that maybe is 8 feet tall inside. And you want two people to be able to live in that closet. Okay. So what he did, and this is very logical and it makes a lot of sense and can make a big difference. He looks at this closet, and the way that they usually do closets is they have one shelf and one hanging pole in those closets. You and I have both seen millions of those. Split that in half. Do 2 rows of hanging, and we also want to sort down to what the most important, most common items are that folks are going to be needing to use in that closet. And so more often than not, ladies don't use a lot of their longest dresses regularly. That potentially could be in another space in the home. And so you want to think about, maybe we want to have a couple of drawers, 2 or 3 drawers for socks, underwear. We want to have some hanging for 2 rows of hanging for regular shirts and tops. We want to have some shelves, both for some folded items and potentially for some shoes. And so that couple who are wanting to share that small closet, we're going to do a bit of an inventory with them, and we're also going to identify several things. And there's another principle I like to share with folks, and you may have heard of this. It's called the 80-20 rule. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Most people use 20% of their wardrobe or less 80% of the time.
80% of the time. Isn't that amazing?
And here's another irony too. If you look at major organizations, churches, big businesses, it's not uncommon that about 20% of the people are kind of carrying the load in those organizations. So
Yeah.
there's some bigger, broader principles that work there too.
Right, right.
But with those folks who are going to be needing to use a limited space, that's where you really want to help them identify what's most important to have in the space. And then you're going to provide the shelves or drawers or hanging that's appropriate for those items. And also even arranging things, even according to height for the person. If you've got a tall husband and a not so tall wife, then maybe it's going to be logical that he has some higher hanging or has his shirts and things up high, and the wife has her tops and shirts down low.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, Patrick, because several of my clients are height challenged.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about organizing the client, we're going for that normal height, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have height challenge, then you want to be able to reach what you want to wear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be organized by function, not so what I'm hearing you say is by function, not so much as aesthetics.
Oh, but we can definitely combine those things.
Okay.
Because and that's part of the fun of it. Because let's say there's a few handbags that get used regularly and they're really important.
Mm-hmm.
Put those front and center. If you're going to have a few drawers in the space, make those some of the first things you see, and you can decorate the drawer faces. It can be an interesting material. You can do pretty handles. So then that's where the aesthetics can come in, because the important stuff is often interesting things to the client as well.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because this has been a topic of conversation among some of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, I also suggested we combine both function and aesthetics, so it's a happy place to be.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be there. You want to be in your closet. You want it to be a calming area.
So much so. I mean, in the common closet, most folks have, the first thing you see when you walk in is like random hanging. And that can be jarring at the least, and it can be really, really, especially if individuals have perceptual challenges. Then if for individuals who have visual challenges or have some visual or auditory disorders, typically visual disorders, where chaos just doesn't work for them,
Mm-hmm.
then that's where you can put some things behind doors or have those drawers and just make the first thing you see when you walk in pleasant.
Pleasant. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you recommend as, so we're still on this, this small closet ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
What do you recommend for shoe storage? Maybe there's an excess of shoes, and I know you said to pare down. However, supposing the client doesn't want to pare down, they don't want to edit, they want to keep everything they have. What do you recommend for that closet space?
I hear you. And I've had those occasions. There are a number of ways you can manage shoe storage. One of the least efficient ways is to have them in their boxes. because there's air inside the box. So that box is taking up more space on a shelf than if you just had the pair of shoes. Bonnie, I also have had, I'm sorry,
It's all right.
anyhow, sorry, my brain is a little fried. Anyhow, I've also had experience being, actually, I worked at the Container Store for a while. And so there are a lot of interesting little aids for stacking shoes. There's a version where you can have toe in and toe out in a very tight space.
Okay.
And it can rest on the shelf. So when I have that customer who really wants to keep everything and everything has to be in that space, then we're going to do things like have adjustable shelving so that flats and sandals, you may stack them. And so then you can have tighter spacing for that set of shelves.
Mm-hmm.
The heels, the nice thing about most heels is when you reverse them, you go toe in and toe out.
Mm-hmm.
That literally narrows the footprint of the heels. So there's a whole lot of Tetris happening when you have that kind of challenge.
That challenge. I use that toe in and toe out with clients.
Big
And
time.
I have used with several clients because they didn't want to downsize without stacking, that flat sandal and stacking on top of each other. Now, the only thing there, and this is what I've cautioned my clients is, when you go to pull out your pair of shoes, you've got to remember that stack is going to come apart. So.
Well, and it depends upon how you build the stack, kind of how you manage the shoes. There also, and you and I think have probably both done this trick, where like with sandals, you can often insert like the toe into the straps of the other shoe. And then when you have like the staggered heels on a shelf, then typically you're going to pull the heel out of the backward shoe first and then pull the toe of the other shoe. And that's a bit of education for the customer and being conscious of whether or not that's the right way to go, because if the customer if that's not really going to be a fit for them, then I have to find another way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the other thing too is when we have your typical closet, more often than not, and when we're talking a small closet, you do usually have an 8-foot ceiling. So there will be some opportunities that the less frequently utilized items like shoes that aren't worn as often or boots, folded clothes that aren't used as often, they can go on an upper shelf.
On the upper shelf, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And then
Yes.
I always like to keep a little step stool inside the closet, so for those items, just like you said, those hard to reach items. Yeah.
And there's some pretty step stools, little pretty nice thin collapsible ladders you can get off of various websites and things like that. And so that's sometimes, maybe a thank you gift to the customer. Hey, I know that we've set things up so that you're going to be utilizing some higher spaces. And here's something for you to help get things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are always nice. I've always put them on hooks, attached the hooks to the inside of the closet. So
yes.
Right there, and the client doesn't have to go searching, for a step stool, but it's around. So
and that accessible, yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The accessibility is huge.
That's key, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, we're talking about accessibility. All right. So walking into a closet and they want to see, like you said earlier, 20%. We wear 20% of what we own. So that's a small, that's a small amount.
Yes.
Actually. Right.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, and I've had clients ask me this, they have that small closet, okay, but then they want to get the mobile clothing rack. What are your thoughts on that?
By mobile clothing rack, what do you mean?
They're on like the 4 wheels. They're a steel frame.
The rolling rack.
The rolling rack.
Garment rack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To use
as extra for clothing.
I think it depends upon the space in the closet. Because more likely than not, that rack is going to always be in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, more often than not, it's unless you have enough extra space that it can have its own parking spot in the closet. And you could potentially locate other less frequently used items on the hanging or shelves that it's parked in front of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one, Patrick. I always say because of it's visual to me, it's visual clutter. And when I walk into, I think it's so important for people to feel at peace when they're walking into a closet, whether it's their bedroom, and it's got to be the sanctuary.
Tammy, that's so true. I mean, the principles of feng shui are not something with which I'm extremely familiar, but one of the important details is just how well does a space serve you?
Mm-hmm.
So
tell me, okay, so I know we're on a time limit here.
Sure,
we
sure.
go on all night about this, but
this is fun.
This is so interesting.
We're a little crazy for this stuff.
So tell me about your thoughts on sweaters. Okay. Do you prefer that sweaters be folded? And if so, do you have a certain way to fold them? Or do you recommend hanging sweaters in the closet?
You know, I'm cautious about hanging them because more likely than not, the material will stretch. There are various kinds of sweaters, like if it's a wool sweater and it's not likely to stretch. Here's kind of a thought about the kinds of items that can be in a closet. If you, assuming you're using the thin profile hangers, you can make an awful lot happen when you can hang items, because within a foot of space, you can have 15 to 20 articles, assuming that you use the thinner hangers and they're not particularly the bulky clothing.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times sweaters are something that go into that same category with maybe workout wear or slacks that you're not hanging, where it makes sense to fold them. And I don't often put them in a drawer, because then you have to dig down into a drawer to the bottom to get things in the bottom of the stack.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more inclined to suggest shelves, and also to suggest shelves that are closer together, so your stack of foldeds is not so tall that that bottom item in the stack is difficult to get at.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as folding goes, folks can have challenges sometimes with folding. The nice thing is we know that there's folding boards that you can purchase that help you to fold garments. And if someone is into toys, let's say in a more likely relationship between a man and a woman, the guy is not necessarily always going to be the one who loves to fold, unless there's a gadget involved. But it could be anybody, you know. So the folding boards, they call them flip folds, and there's other kinds of boards like that. They're a gadget. And so then that's a way that someone can fold, and then they also get consistent size folds. Uh-huh. So the items in a stack are a consistent size, and you can actually size your shelving with that in mind, in terms of widths of shelving.
And that's an excellent suggestion. Excellent suggestion. Do you have any more suggestions for maybe there are individuals that just, maybe they don't like that, they want a closet, but they don't like to hang?
Oh, I'm working with one right now, and they don't have a large closet. The house was built in the 80s. The ceiling in there is only an 82-inch tall ceiling. It's not even a 7-foot ceiling in these closets.
Okay.
And along the whole top row of this individual's closet are stacks of folded scrubs and things like that. So so if someone doesn't like to hang items, then you really are going to think about the type of item. Is it something that makes sense being in a drawer or on a shelf? And if you still want it not to be too much visual clutter, then consider making a cabinet with doors.
Cabinet with doors. Okay.
Yeah. And your shelf spacing, again, so that you can break up the stacks.
Yes. Now, what are you like in the shelf, in the closet? Sometimes I use sometimes with my clients are those shelf dividers. What are your thoughts on those? It partitions off the space.
They can work. And depending upon what kind of shelf you're dealing with, if like when I build a system, when I design a system, I make maximum widths of like only 3 feet. But a lot of closets that people have to deal with in their homes have long undefined stretches of shelf and long undefined stretches of hanging pole. So absolutely, shelf dividers can be a great way to designate areas and to manage those stacks of things. You can also label the front edges of dividers or the edges of shelves between dividers. And like I imagine with some of the population that you work with, Tammy, that there will be folks who need that additional visual aid.
Yes,
So that it's a reminder of what's supposed to happen there.
absolutely.
I'm a fan of shelf dividers, absolutely. Used appropriately. I mean, sometimes they're just awkward.
Yeah, but like you said, used appropriately and labeled where they can see. Yes, a lot of my clients, that's what we do is work with that. So they can see, like you said, it's a visual map to go in and they can see it. Yes.
Huge. Yes, Tammy, absolutely. That's huge.
Big help. Well, Patrick, we're almost down here to about 3 minutes remaining. Give us your top 3 suggestions for an organized, efficient closet. What are your top 3?
Oh my gosh. Well, I would absolutely say a big one is categories. Obvious categories. Make it easy to know where something goes. I'm a big fan also, as we've talked about, and it applies in many situations. If you're going to have a shelf section, have multiple shelves so you can break up your stacks, or for shoes, just so I break up your spaces. Right? And rather than a lot of long undefined shelf space or long undefined rod space, when you break it up, that also supports your categorization. And then there's a lot of value and in helping a customer identify what really does still need to stay in the closet. Because there's many a time that there's just this collection of things that have kind of come with you and you just don't necessarily need all of that. Lighten your load.
Lighten your load. I like that. Lighten your load. I like that. Patrick, how can people, I noticed you put in the chat room how people can contact you, but do you want to go ahead and verbally announce that too? Your email?
I would be happy to. My email address with California Closets is Hausske, and my last name is spelled Hausse. Those were S's as in Sam. So it's Hausske@calclosets.com.
Okay. And then can they, if they have questions about their closet space and the efficiency, functionality, that kind of thing, they can contact you. Now, if they
They're
want
absolutely
to,
welcome to.
okay. And if they want to, anyone that wants to have or is looking for a closet, they can contact you at californiaclosets.com.
Well, it's Hausske@calclosets, CALCLOSETS.com.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. You've been just so knowledgeable and sharing your expertise with us
Thanks, Tammy.
tonight. We really
I appreciate it. We probably could have gone on for hours, couldn't we?
I know, right? We
Okay.
could. Absolutely. So thank you. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight on The Organizer Coach. And we will see you in February. We're going to be learning and talking about relationship clutter and what all it does, not only, to our mind, but also to our spaces. So we'll see you next month. And Patrick, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Tammy.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.